What started as a casual joke about picking out wedding rings at the mall turned into the most uncomfortable conversation of my life. Sarah looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm 51 years old, Marcus. I don't have time for games anymore. Are you serious about us, or are you just wasting my time? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd panic at the mention of marriage. But here I was, standing in the jewelry section of Nordstrom in downtown Seattle, feeling like I was about to have a heart attack. It all started so innocently. Sarah and I were just walking through the mall after dinner, killing time before the movie started, when we passed by the jewelry counter. "Oh, look," I said, pointing at a display of engagement rings. "They're having a sale. Maybe I should grab one while the price is right." I laughed, expecting her to roll her eyes at my terrible joke like she usually did. Instead, Sarah stopped walking, just froze right there in the middle of the store. When I turned around to see why she wasn't following me, the expression on her face made my stomach drop. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't laughing. She was staring at me with this look I'd never seen before, serious, almost cold. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was just joking around," I said, trying to backtrack. "You know, typical guy humor. Bad timing, I guess." Sarah walked closer to me, and I could see something in her eyes that made me want to take a step back. "Marcus, we need to talk. Right now." That's how I found myself sitting across from her in the food court, watching her fidget with her coffee cup, while I tried to figure out what I'd done wrong. The usual mall sounds, kids laughing, stores playing music, people chatting, seemed to fade into the background as Sarah took a deep breath and looked me straight in the eye. "I'm 51 years old," she said. "I don't have time for games anymore. Are you serious about us, or are you just wasting my time?" The question hit me like a brick wall. We'd been dating for 8 months, and sure, things were good between us. Really good, actually. But marriage? I hadn't even thought about it seriously. We were both adults. Both had been married before. Both knew what we were getting into. Or, at least I thought we did. "Sarah, where's this coming from?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "We've never talked about marriage. We've barely talked about moving in together." "That's exactly the problem," she said, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. "We've been together for 8 months. Marcus, 8 months of dinners, movies, weekend trips, meeting each other's friends. I've introduced you to my sister, you've met my kids. But we never talk about the future. We never talk about what this is supposed to be." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "I thought we were just taking things as they come, enjoying each other's company. I didn't know you were looking for something more serious." "How could you not know?" Sarah's voice started to rise, and she quickly glanced around to make sure we weren't attracting attention. "I'm 51 years old, Marcus. I'm not dating for fun anymore. I'm not looking for a casual relationship or someone to pass the time with." I thought that was obvious. The thing is, it wasn't obvious to me. Not at all. When I met Sarah at my buddy Tom's barbecue last summer, I was attracted to her confidence, her laugh, the way she could hold her own in any conversation. She was beautiful, sure, but it was more than that. She was interesting. She had stories. She'd traveled, had a successful career in marketing, raised 2 kids mostly on her own after her divorce 5 years ago. But marriage? The thought had honestly never crossed my mind. Not because I didn't care about her. I did, more than I'd cared about anyone in years. But because I figured we were both at an age where we'd already done the marriage thing. Been there, learned from it, moved on. My first marriage ended when I was 38. Jessica and I had been together since college, got married at 25, and spent the next 13 years slowly growing apart until we realized we were basically roommates, who occasionally had dinner together. The divorce was amicable enough, but it left me feeling like maybe I wasn't cut out for the whole traditional relationship thing. Since then, I'd dated here and there, had a few longer relationships, but nothing serious. Nothing that made me want to combine bank accounts or argue about whose turn it was to take out the trash. I liked my independence. I liked being able to make plans without consulting someone else, to travel when I wanted, to spend my weekends, however I felt like spending them. When I met Sarah, I thought I'd found someone who felt the same way. She seemed independent, confident, like she had her life figured out. She never pushed for more time together than we already spent. She never hinted about meeting my family or talked about future plans beyond the next weekend or the next month. Sarah, I said carefully, I need you to help me understand something. You say I should have known you were looking for something serious, but you never said anything. We've never had this conversation before. I shouldn't have to say it, she replied. Look at me, Marcus. Really look at me. I'm 51 years old. My youngest child is 19 and in college. I've been divorced for 5 years. I've dated. I've had my fun. I've figured out who I am as a single woman. Do you really think I'm going to waste my time with someone who isn't looking for a real relationship? I looked at her. Really looked at her like she'd asked. Sarah was beautiful, no question about that. She took care of herself, dressed well, and always looked put together. But now that she mentioned it, I could see things I'd maybe been ignoring. The way she sometimes looked at couples we'd see at restaurants, especially older couples who seemed comfortable together. The way she'd light up when her married friends talked about their relationships. The way she'd gotten quiet the few times marriage had come up in conversation with our friends. I guess I thought we were both just seeing where things went, I said. No pressure, no expectations. No expectations? Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Marcus, I cook dinner for you twice a week. I've canceled plans with my friends to spend time with you. I've rearranged my schedule to accommodate your work trips. I've shared things with you that I haven't shared with anyone else. And you think I'm doing all of that with no expectations? When she put it like that, I started to feel like an idiot. Of course she had expectations. Any reasonable person would have expectations after 8 months of what I'd considered a pretty serious relationship. The problem was, I'd been thinking of it as serious in the moment, but not serious in terms of the future. I care about you, I said, and I meant it. I really do. I look forward to seeing you. I miss you when you're not around. I love spending time with you. But marriage? That's a big step. That's not something I take lightly. I'm not asking you to propose right now, Sarah said. I'm asking you to be honest with me about what you want. Are you looking for a life partner? Or are you looking for someone to date until something better comes along? The question hung in the air between us like a challenge. Around us, the mall continued its normal rhythm. Teenagers walking in, groups, families with strollers, couples browsing stores. But I felt like we were in our own little bubble of tension. I don't know, I said honestly. I haven't thought that far ahead. Well, maybe it's time you did, Sarah said. She stood up from the table, and for a moment I thought she was going to walk away. Instead, she sat back down and leaned forward. Marcus, I like you. I really do. But I need to know that we're on the same page about what this relationship is supposed to be. What does that mean, exactly? It means I need to know if you see a future with me. Not just next weekend or next month, but a real future. Because if you don't, if you're just enjoying the ride until something else comes along, then I need to know that now. I sat there, staring at my hands, trying to figure out how to respond. The truth was, I hadn't really thought about the future, at all. Not in concrete terms. I knew I enjoyed being with Sarah. Knew I'd be upset if she wasn't in my life anymore. But I'd never sat down and imagined what it would look like if we were together long term. Can I ask you something? I said. What changed? What made you bring this up today? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice was softer. My sister called me this morning. She's getting engaged. She's 47, and she's getting engaged to someone she's been dating for 6 months. 6 months, Marcus. And when she told me, my first thought wasn't, congratulations, or I'm happy for you. My first thought was, what's wrong with me that I've been with someone for 8 months and we've never even talked about the future? That hit me harder than I expected. There's nothing wrong with you, isn't there? I'm 51, Marcus. I'm not getting any younger. If I want to spend the rest of my life with someone, I need to figure out if that someone is you or if I need to start over with someone else. And I can't figure that out if we never talk about it. The weight of what she was saying started to sink in. This wasn't just about marriage or commitment in the abstract. This was about time, and how much of it we had left, and how we wanted to spend it. I understand what you're saying, I said. But I need you to understand something too. My first marriage ended because we rushed into things. We got married because it seemed like the next logical step, not because we'd really thought about whether we were right for each other long term. I don't want to make that mistake again. How long do you need? Sarah asked. Because I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm asking you to think seriously about whether you could see yourself marrying me eventually. And if the answer is no, or if you don't know and don't want to figure it out, then I need to know that. I looked at her across the table. This woman, who'd become such an important part of my life without me even realizing it. She was right about everything she'd said. She cooked for me, made time for me, shared her life with me. She'd been patient with my weird work schedule, understanding when I had to cancel plans, and supportive when I was stressed about a big project. And what had I given her in return? Good conversation, decent company, and apparently a lot of uncertainty about where we stood. You're asking me to make a decision about the rest of my life, I said. No, Sarah replied. I'm asking you to make a decision about whether you want to try to build a life with me. There's a difference. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The mall around us was starting to empty out as stores prepared to close. Our movie had started 20 minutes ago, but neither of us mentioned it. This conversation was more important than whatever was playing on the big screen. What if I'm not ready to answer that question yet? I asked. Sarah nodded, like she'd expected that response. Then I guess we both have some thinking to do. She stood up again, and this time she didn't sit back down. I'm going to head home. I think we both need some space to figure out what we want. Sarah, wait. I stood up too, not wanting the conversation to end like this. Can we talk about this more? Maybe tomorrow, when we've both had time to think? Maybe, she said. But, Marcus, I need you to understand something. I'm not going to wait forever. I can't afford to. I drove home in complete silence, my mind racing faster than my car on the empty highway. The conversation with Sarah kept replaying in my head, but each time it felt more surreal. Had I really been that oblivious to what she wanted? Had I misread our entire relationship? My apartment felt different when I walked in. The same furniture, same layout, same mess of magazines on the coffee table, but somehow it all looked smaller, lonelier. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat on my couch, staring at the blank TV screen. The thing that bothered me most wasn't that Sarah wanted something serious. It was that I genuinely hadn't seen it coming. I prided myself on being observant, on understanding people. In my job as a software architect, I had to read clients, understand what they really needed versus what they said they wanted. How had I missed this? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our text messages from the past few weeks. Looking at them now, with Sarah's words fresh in my mind, I started to see things differently. When she'd texted, "Hope your presentation goes well today," followed by, "Can't wait to hear how it went," I'd read it as friendly support. Now I wondered if she was showing the kind of investment a serious partner would make. When she'd suggested we visit that new farmer's market in Ballard, I'd thought she just wanted to try it out. But she talked about how nice it would be to make it a regular Saturday thing, maybe pick up ingredients for cooking together. Had that been her way of talking about building routines together, creating a shared life? The more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I became. Not because Sarah was wrong, but because she might be right. Maybe I had been treating our relationship like an extended casual thing while she'd been building something real. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother Jake. "How's the girlfriend? Still keeping things casual?" The timing felt like a cosmic joke. Jake lived in Portland with his wife of 12 years and their 2 kids. He'd been asking about Sarah for months, always with this knowing smirk, like he could see something I couldn't. Instead of my usual non-committal response, I found myself typing back, "Actually, we had a serious talk tonight. She wants to know if I'm looking for something long-term." My phone rang within 30 seconds. "Okay, what happened?" Jake said without any greeting. I told him about the mall, the jewelry joke, and the conversation in the food court. Jake listened, without interrupting, which was unusual for him. "So she basically asked if you're serious about her," he said when I finished. Yeah, but it felt like an ultimatum. Marcus, man, think about this from her perspective. She's 51. If she wants to get married again, she can't spend the next 5 years figuring out if you're the right guy. Time isn't on her side the way it is for you. Time isn't on my side either. I'm 46. But you're a guy. Society gives you more time to figure your shit out. Women don't get that luxury, especially when it comes to relationships. I'd never thought about it that way. So you think she's right to push this? I think she's being smart. Look, you've been dating her for 8 months. You obviously like her, or you wouldn't still be together. The question is, what's holding you back from seeing where it could go? That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? What was holding me back? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe I'm scared of making another mistake. What mistake? Your marriage to Jessica ended, but it wasn't a disaster. You guys just grew apart. That happens. It doesn't mean you're bad at relationships. But what if I'm not ready for marriage again? What if I don't want all the complications that come with it? Then be honest about that, Jake said. But don't string Sarah along if you know you're never going to want what she wants. After we hung up, I sat in my living room trying to imagine my life without Sarah in it. The thought made my chest tighten. We'd developed routines together. Wednesday night dinners at her place, weekend morning runs along the waterfront, lazy Sunday afternoons reading in Volunteer Park. I'd started thinking of those things as our activities rather than just things we did together. But was that enough to build a marriage on? Shared activities and good company? I thought about what Sarah had said about her sister getting engaged after 6 months. Part of me wondered if Sarah was feeling pressure because of that, making decisions based on someone else's timeline rather than our own. But then I remembered the look in her eyes when she'd talked about not having time for games. That hadn't been about her sister. That had been about her own life, her own priorities. The next morning, I couldn't concentrate at work. I kept staring at my computer screen, thinking about Sarah instead of the database architecture I was supposed to be designing. Around lunchtime, I decided to call my dad. My parents had been married for 32 years before my mom died 3 years ago. If anyone understood long-term relationships, it was him. He was living in Tacoma now, in a smaller house closer to the water. Dad, can I ask you something about relationships? Sure, son. This about that woman you've been seeing? Sarah? Yeah. She wants to know if I'm serious about her, like marriage is serious. There was a pause. And what did you tell her? That I hadn't thought about it. Another pause. Longer this time. Marcus, you're 46 years old. You've been with this woman for 8 months. What exactly have you been thinking about? Coming from my dad, the question didn't sound harsh, just genuinely curious. I guess I've been thinking about whether I enjoy spending time with her, whether we get along, whether we have fun together. And do you? Yeah, absolutely. Do you trust her? Yes. Do you respect her? Of course. Does she make you want to be a better person? That question caught me off guard. What do you mean? When I was with your mother, I wanted to be the kind of man she deserved. Not because she demanded it, but because being around her made me want to rise to the occasion. Does Sarah do that? For you? I thought about it. Sarah had never criticized me or tried to change me, but I had started making small improvements since we'd been together. I'd been eating better, partly because she cooked healthy meals. I'd been reading more because she loved discussing books. I'd even started keeping my apartment cleaner because I was embarrassed when she came over. Yeah, I said. I think she does. Then what's the problem? I don't know if I'm ready for marriage again. Son, nobody's ever really ready for marriage. You just decide you want to try building a life with someone and hope for the best. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is whether you want to try. That evening, I found myself driving past Sarah's neighborhood. I didn't stop, didn't knock on her door, but I wanted to see her house, to think about what it would be like to come home to her every day instead of just twice a week. Her house was a small craftsman in Wallingford, with a garden she'd been working on, and a front porch where we'd sat talking on warm evenings. It looked like the kind of place where people built a life together, The kind of place where you'd argue about whose turn it was to take out the recycling and plan weekend projects and host dinner parties for friends. The thought scared me, but it also intrigued me in a way I hadn't expected. When I got home, there was a voicemail from Sarah. Her voice sounded careful, measured. "Hi, Marcus. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. I want you to know that I'm not trying to pressure you into anything you don't want, but I also can't pretend that I don't know what I'm looking for. I think we should take a few days apart to think things through. Call me when you're ready to talk about where we go from here." I played the message 3 times, trying to read between the lines. Was she giving me space, or was she pulling away? Was this her way of ending things gently, or was she genuinely waiting for me to figure out what I wanted? 3 days passed, without contact. 3 days that felt like the longest of my life. I'd wake up reaching for my phone to text Sarah good morning, then remember that we were taking space. I'd see something funny during the day and want to share it with her, then stop myself. By Thursday evening, I was going stir-crazy. I decided to meet my friend David for drinks at our usual spot, a dive bar in Capitol Hill that served surprisingly good burgers. David had been through 2 divorces and was currently dating someone 20 years younger than him. If anyone would understand my perspective, it would be him. "So, let me get this straight," David said after I'd explained the situation. "You've got a beautiful, successful woman who wants to be with you long-term, and you're freaking out because she asked you to think about marriage? It's not that simple. Isn't it? Marcus, you've been complaining for years about how hard it is to find someone decent to date. Someone who isn't crazy, who has their life together, who you actually enjoy spending time with. And now you've found that person, and you're running. Scared because she wants commitment?" I took a long sip of my beer. "What if we're not compatible long-term? What if we want different things?" "Like what?" That stumped me. Sarah and I had never had any major disagreements about important things. We both valued financial responsibility. We both enjoyed similar social activities. We both preferred staying in to going out most nights. We talked about politics, religion, family, all the topics that supposedly cause problems in relationships, and we'd aligned on most things. "I don't know," I admitted. "I guess I'm just scared of making the wrong choice." "You know what the wrong choice is?" David leaned forward. "The wrong choice is letting fear make your decisions for you. Trust me, I've been there. I've let good women walk away because I was too scared to commit. And I've married women I wasn't sure about because I was too scared to be alone. Neither strategy works. So what does work? Being honest about what you want and going after it. Do you want to be with Sarah?" "Yes." "Do you want to be with her a year from now?" I thought about it. "Yes." 2 years from now? Probably. 5 years from now. That was harder to answer, but when I tried to imagine my life 5 years in the future, Sarah was in it. "I think so." "Then what's the problem?" Marriage is a big deal. It's not just about wanting to be with someone. It's about legal stuff, financial stuff, combining lives completely. David laughed. "Dude, you're already combining lives. You spend half your time at her place. She cooks for you. You've met her kids. You make plans together. The only thing missing is the paperwork." He had a point. When I really thought about it, Sarah and I were already functioning like a couple in most ways. We just weren't living together, and we hadn't made it official. But what if it doesn't work? "Out?" I asked. "What if we get married and then realize we're not right for each other? Then you get divorced. It happens. But what if you don't try and spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been?" That hit me hard. I'd been so focused on the risk of marriage failing that I hadn't considered the risk of not trying at all. On Friday, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Sarah. "Hi," she said, her voice neutral. "Hi. How are you?" "I'm okay. You?" "Not great, actually. I miss you." There was a pause. "I miss you too. Can we talk? In person? Are you ready to talk, or do you just want to see me?" The question was fair. "I think I'm ready to talk. Really talk." "Okay. Do you want to come over? I'll make coffee." Sarah's house felt familiar and foreign at the same time when I walked in. I'd been there dozens of times, but now I was seeing it differently. The photos on her mantel, the books on her shelves, the way she'd arranged her furniture. It all felt like clues to who she was and what kind of life she wanted to build. We sat on her couch with our coffee, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I said finally. "Me too. You first." Sarah set down her coffee cup and turned to face me. "I've been thinking that maybe I came on too strong. Maybe I put you in an unfair position by asking you to make such a big decision so quickly." "No, you didn't. You were honest about what you wanted. I appreciate that. But I also realized that I was scared. My sister's engagement, turning 51, seeing friends get married or divorced. It all made me feel like I was running out of time. And maybe I projected that urgency onto you." "Were you?" "Projecting, I mean. Partially. But Marcus, I wasn't wrong about what I want. I do want to build a life with someone. I do want marriage again, eventually. And I do want to know that the person I'm investing my time and energy in wants the same things." I nodded. "That's fair, and I've been thinking about that too. About what I want. And I want to be with you. Not just for the next few months, but for the long term. I want to see where this goes." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "That's good to hear. But Marcus, seeing where it goes isn't the same as being committed to making it work." "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you willing to put in the work that a serious relationship requires? Are you willing to have the hard conversations, make compromises, and prioritize us even when it's inconvenient?" I thought about my marriage. To Jessica, how we'd both stopped putting in effort long before we'd admitted the relationship was over. How we'd avoided difficult conversations until the problems became insurmountable. "Yes," I said. "I am." "And marriage?" "I'm not asking you to propose right now, but I need to know that it's something you could see yourself wanting with me." This was the moment of truth. I could give her a safe, non-committal answer, or I could be honest about what I'd realized over the past few days. "Sarah, I've been married before, and it didn't work out. That made me cautious about doing it again. But I've also realized that being cautious isn't the same as being smart. Being smart would be recognizing when I've found something good and not letting fear ruin it." "And have you found something good?" "Yeah, I have. With you." Sarah smiled, for the first time since I'd arrived. "So what does that mean, practically speaking?" "It means I want to try. Really try. Not just see where things go, but actively work toward building something together." "Like what?" "Like maybe we should talk about moving in together. Like maybe we should meet each other's families properly. Like maybe we should start making plans that go beyond next month." Sarah reached over and took my hand. "I'd like that. And Sarah, I want you to know that when I joked about the ring at the mall, it wasn't really a joke. I mean, it was, but maybe it was also my subconscious testing the waters, seeing how the idea felt." "How did it feel?" "Terrifying, but also kind of exciting," Sarah laughed. "That's probably how it's supposed to feel. So where do we go from here?" "We take it one step at a time, but we take it together, with both of us committed to seeing where it leads. Even if it leads to marriage, especially if it leads to marriage." 2 weeks later, Sarah and I were sitting in her kitchen on a Saturday morning, sharing the newspaper and drinking coffee like we'd done it 1,000 times before. The tension from our small conversation had dissolved into something deeper, a sense of partnership that felt both new and completely natural. "My mom wants to meet you," Sarah said without looking up from the art section. I nearly choked on my coffee. "Your mom? She's coming to visit next month. I told her about you, about us getting more serious, and she asked if she could meet you." Meeting parents was definitely relationship escalation. With Jessica, I'd met her parents after we'd already moved in together, and it had felt like a formality. This felt different, like an audition for a role I wasn't sure I was qualified for. "What did you tell her about me?" "That you're a good man who makes me happy and that you're thinking about sticking around." "Thinking about it?" Sarah grinned. "Okay, planning to stick around. Better?" "Much better." The truth was, things had shifted dramatically since our conversation. We'd started talking about everything: money, career goals, family dynamics, even stupid things like household chores and holiday traditions. It was like we'd given ourselves permission to think long-term, and suddenly, there were 100 details to figure out. Speaking of families, I said, Jake wants to have us over for dinner next weekend. Are you up for meeting my brother properly? The one who's been giving you relationship advice? That's him. Fair warning, he's going to interrogate you about your intentions. Good. I like a man who looks out for his brother. Later that afternoon, we went furniture shopping. Not for anything specific, just browsing. But somehow we ended up in the bedroom section of IKEA, debating the merits of different mattress sizes. A king is excessive for most bedrooms, Sarah was saying, bouncing slightly on a display model. But it's nice not to wake up every time the other person moves, I countered. Speaking from experience, Jessica was a restless sleeper. I spent 7 years getting kicked in my sleep. It was the first time I'd mentioned my ex-wife casually, without the conversation becoming heavy. Sarah just nodded. My ex-husband snored like a freight train. I actually slept better after he moved out. We looked at each other and started laughing. Here we were, discussing bed sizes and sleeping habits like we were actually planning to share a bed long-term. 6 months ago, this conversation would have sent me running. Now it feels like progress. So when you eventually move in together, the young IKEA salesperson said, appearing out of nowhere, you'll want to consider your space, constraints, when you eventually move in together, not if. When? We're just looking, I said quickly. Of course, the salesperson said with a knowing smile. But when you're ready, this model comes in a package deal with the nightstands and dresser. After we left IKEA, empty-handed but with a lot to think about, Sarah suggested we walk around Green Lake. It was one of those perfect Seattle fall days, crisp but sunny, with the leaves just starting to change colors. Can I ask you something? Sarah said as we found our pace among the joggers and dog walkers. Sure. What changed your mind? I mean, it really changed it. Was it the conversation with your brother, your dad, or something else? I thought about it. Honestly, it was the 3 days we didn't talk. I kept having moments where I wanted to share something with you, and you weren't there. Not just because we were taking space, but because I'd never given you the place in my life where you'd always be there. What? Do you mean, like, Tuesday morning I was driving to work and heard this song on the radio that I knew you'd love, but I couldn't text you because we weren't talking. And I realized that if we broke up, I'd have those moments for months, maybe years. Missing you, wanting to share things with you, but not being able to because I'd let you go. Sarah stopped, walking. That's exactly how I felt when my marriage ended. All these moments of wanting to tell someone something but not having that person anymore. Is that why you wanted to get serious with us? To avoid feeling that way again? Partly. But also because I realized I'd rather risk getting hurt again than definitely be alone. We'd completed about half the loop around the lake when Sarah's phone rang. She glanced at it and frowned. It's my daughter Emma. I should take this. Emma was Sarah's youngest, the 19-year-old college student. I'd met her briefly a few times, but we'd never had a real conversation. As far as I knew, she was adjusting well to college life in Oregon. Hi, honey, Sarah answered. What's going on? I could hear Emma's voice through the phone, though not clearly enough to make out words. But Sarah's expression grew concerned. Slow down. What happened to Brad? More talking from Emma's end. Sarah sat down on a bench and I sat next to her. Okay. First of all, you're going to be fine. Second, you did the right thing by calling. Do you want me to come down there? The conversation continued for about 10 minutes, with Sarah offering reassurance and practical advice about what sounded like a relationship problem. When she finally hung up, she looked drained. Everything okay? Emma's boyfriend broke up with her, via text, after 2 years together. She's pretty devastated. That's rough, especially at 19, when everything feels like the end of the world. She wants me to drive down to Eugene tomorrow, just to be there for her. Of course. Do you want me to come with you? Sarah looked surprised. You do that? If you want me to. I mean, I don't know if Emma would want me there, but if you need support, she might actually like having you there. She's been curious about you, asking questions about our relationship. What kind of questions? Mostly whether you're going to stick around, whether I'm happy, whether you're serious about me. What, did you tell her? That I hoped you were serious, but I was still figuring it out. And now? Sarah smiled. Now I can tell her that you offered to drive 4 hours to comfort a teenager you barely know because you wanted to support me. The next morning, we loaded up my car and headed south to Eugene. Emma had calmed down overnight, but she was still pretty shaken up. She met us at a coffee shop near campus, and I was struck by how much she looked like Sarah. Same dark hair, same expressive eyes, same way of holding herself. "So you're the famous Marcus," Emma said after Sarah had hugged her and we'd all sat down. "I don't know about famous people. Mom talks about you a lot. Like, a lot, a lot." "Emma," Sarah warned. "What?" "It's true. She's never talked about anyone the way she talks about you." I glanced at Sarah, who was blushing slightly. "Is that right?" "She said you might be the one," Emma continued, apparently oblivious to her mother's embarrassment. "Emma! What? You did? You said he might be different from the other guys you've dated." "Other guys?" I asked, grinning at Sarah. "There haven't been that many other guys," Sarah said quickly. "Define that many," I said. "Can we please focus on my broken heart instead of my mom's dating history?" Emma interrupted. For the next hour, we listened to Emma process her breakup. She was articulate and self-aware for 19, but still young enough that everything felt catastrophic. I found myself offering perspective when she asked for it, sharing stories about my own dating disasters at her age. "You know what's weird?" Emma said as we were getting ready to leave. "Talking to you two together, I can see why Mom thinks this might work. You guys actually listen to each other. As opposed to most couples I know, including my parents when they were together, they just wait for their turn to talk. But you two actually respond to what the other person is saying." On the drive back to Seattle, Sarah was quiet for the first hour. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just thinking about what Emma said, about us listening to each other. It's true. We do. My marriage to Emma's father. We stopped listening to each other years before we got divorced. We'd have these parallel conversations where we were both talking, but neither of us was really hearing what the other person was saying. Is that what you were afraid of? That we'd end up like that? Maybe. Or that we'd never get to the point where we were really communicating at all. And now?" Sarah reached over and took my hand. "Now I think we might actually have a shot at this." 3 months after our trip to Eugene, Sarah and I found ourselves having a very different kind of conversation. We were painting her guest bedroom. Well, what used to be her guest bedroom. We'd decided I should move in, and this room was going to be my home office. "Higher on the left," Sarah called out from across the room where she was cutting in around the windows. "Like this?" Perfect. It was surreal how domestic this felt. 6 months ago, I would have panicked at the thought of combining households. Now I was debating paint colors and arguing about whether we needed blackout curtains for the office. "You know," I said, climbing down from the ladder, "this is the first time I've lived with someone since Jessica. How does it feel?" "Different. Good difference. With Jessica, moving in together felt like we were checking a box. Dating, check. Moving in, check. Next comes engagement. It was all very procedural. And this? This feels like we're actually building something together." Sarah set down her brush and came over to inspect my work. "You missed a spot." "Where?" She pointed to a small section near the ceiling. "Right there. I think you're being picky." "I think you're being lazy." "Okay, but if I fix it, I get to pick what we order for dinner." Deal. This was what I'd been missing in my previous relationships. The easy negotiation, the playful arguing about meaningless things. With Jessica, everything had felt heavy, like every decision was a referendum on our entire relationship. With Sarah, we could disagree about paint coverage, and it was just about paint coverage. My phone rang as I was touching up the missed spot. It was my dad. "How's the move going?" he asked. "Good. Messy, but good." "You sound happy." "I am. I'm glad. Your mother would have liked Sarah." That caught me off guard. My dad rarely brought up my mom in casual conversation, especially not in relation to my relationships. "You think so?" "I know so." She would have liked that Sarah challenges you, makes you think. Your mother always said the worst thing that could happen to you was ending up with someone who let you get lazy. After we hung up, I told Sarah what he'd said. I like your dad, she said. He's got good instincts. He wants to have us over for Christmas dinner. Him and my aunt and uncle, maybe my cousin and her kids. That sounds nice. What about your family traditions? Do you do anything special? This was one of those conversations that would have terrified me a year ago. Planning holidays together, blending families, creating new traditions. Now it just felt practical. We usually have a big breakfast, and then everyone falls asleep, watching football. Very exciting stuff. My family opens presents on Christmas Eve. Emma and her brother Tyler come home from college, and we stay up way too late playing board games. Sounds like we'll need to compromise. Or start new traditions. 2 weeks later, we hosted our first dinner party together. Nothing fancy, just Jake and his wife, David and his latest girlfriend, and Sarah's best friend Monica with her husband. But sitting around Sarah's dining room table, watching everyone interact, I felt something I hadn't expected. Pride. Not just because Sarah was an amazing hostess, though she was. Not just because the evening was going well, though it was. But because this felt like our life, our friends, our home, our dinner party. Marcus, Monica said during dessert. Sarah tells me you're thinking about proposing. I nearly choked on my wine. She said, "What?" Sarah looked mortified. Monica, I did. Not say that. You said he was ring shopping. I said he mentioned looking at rings. That's completely different. Everyone at the table was grinning now, including Jake, who looked like Christmas had come early. For the record, I said, I have not been ring shopping. Yet, David added, helpfully. Yet, I agreed, surprising myself. The conversation moved on, but I caught Sarah's eye across the table. She was smiling, but there was something else in her expression. Curiosity, maybe, or hope. Later, after everyone had left and we were cleaning up the kitchen, Sarah brought it up. So, ring shopping? Monica has an active imagination. But you said yet. I handed her the last of the wine glasses to dry. I did, didn't I? Marcus, are you thinking about proposing? The question hung in the air between us. 6 months ago, this would have been my cue to change the subject or make a joke. Now I found myself actually considering the answer. Maybe. Are you thinking about saying yes? Maybe. We looked at each other for a moment, both of us smiling. This is crazy, I said. A year ago, I thought I was done with serious relationships, and now I'm living with you and thinking about marriage. Cold feet? No. The opposite, actually. I keep waiting for the panic to set in, for that voice in my head to start listing all the reasons this is a mistake. But it's not happening. What's happening instead? I keep thinking about the future, like actually looking forward to it, planning for it. Sarah put down the dish towel and turned to face me fully. What kind of future? Holidays with our families, traveling together, maybe buying a house with a bigger kitchen and a yard, growing old together? Growing old together? Yeah, I know. That sounds cheesy, but I can actually picture it. Us at 70, still arguing about paint colors and dinner plans. Sarah laughed. That does sound pretty good. The thing is, I continued, I never pictured that with Jessica. Even when we were married, I couldn't really imagine us decades into the future. But with you, it's like I can see this whole life ahead of us. Even the difficult parts, especially the difficult parts. I know we're going to disagree about things, face challenges, and probably drive each other crazy sometimes. But I want to do all of that with you. Sarah reached up and kissed me. For the record, if you do decide to go ring shopping, I like sapphires better than diamonds. Good to know. And I don't need anything huge or expensive. Just something that means something. Also, good to know. And Marcus, yeah? I love that you can picture growing old together. Because I can too. The next morning, I woke up before Sarah and lay in bed thinking about our conversation. The crazy thing was, I meant everything I'd said. For the first time in my adult life, I could genuinely picture myself married and happy about it. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. Dad told me about Christmas dinner. Sounds like things are getting serious. I typed back. Getting serious? We're living together and talking about sapphires. We're way past getting serious. So when's the proposal? When I figure out how to do it right. You're really going to do it? Yeah, I think I really am. 2 months later, I was standing in the same jewelry store where this whole thing started, staring at a display case full of engagement rings and feeling surprisingly calm. The irony wasn't lost on me. The joke that had nearly ended my relationship was about to become reality. Can I help you find something specific? The saleswoman asked. I'm looking for an engagement ring. Something with a sapphire. Ah, a woman. With sophisticated taste. Does she prefer traditional settings or something more modern? That was a good question. I thought about Sarah's style. Classic but not boring. Elegant but not flashy. Traditional, I think. But not too traditional. The saleswoman smiled. I know exactly what you mean. Let me show you a few options. As she pulled out different rings, I found myself thinking about how much had changed since that awkward conversation in the food court. Sarah had been right about everything. We had been wasting time pretending we were just casually dating when we were already building a life together. The only difference now was that we were doing it intentionally. This one is popular, the saleswoman said, showing me a ring with a deep blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. Classic setting, but the sapphire makes it unique. It was beautiful, but it didn't feel right. Too formal somehow. Too much like what I thought an engagement ring should look like, rather than what Sarah would actually want. Do you have anything simpler? She showed me another option, a smaller sapphire in a vintage-inspired setting with delicate detailing around the band. The moment I saw it, I knew it was perfect. It looked like something Sarah would have inherited from a grandmother, full of history and meaning. That's the one, I said. Excellent choice. When are you planning to propose? That was the million-dollar question. Sarah's birthday was coming up next week, but that felt too obvious. Christmas was 2 months away, but that felt too far. I wanted to do it soon, while I was still riding this wave of certainty. But I also wanted it to be special. Soon, I told her. Very soon. 3 days later, the opportunity presented itself in the most unexpected way. Sarah and I were hiking at Rattlesnake Ledge, one of our favorite weekend activities. It was a gorgeous November day, crisp and clear, with Mount Rainier visible in the distance. We'd packed a lunch and planned to eat at the summit. The hike up was challenging, but familiar. We'd done this trail probably a dozen times together, and we'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Sarah was a faster hiker than me, but she'd slow down so we could walk together, and I'd push myself to keep up with her pace. It was a perfect metaphor for our relationship, really. Both of us making adjustments so we could move forward together. Love this view, Sarah said when we reached the top. The whole Puget Sound was spread out below us, with Seattle's skyline visible in the distance. Worth the climb every time, I agreed. We found our usual spot on the rocks and unpacked our lunch. There were other hikers around, but not too many. The peak felt peaceful, almost private. Marcus, Sarah said, pulling out a thermos of coffee. I have something to tell you. The serious tone in her voice made me nervous. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. It's good news, actually. I got the promotion. Sarah had been interviewing for a senior marketing director position with a tech company in Bellevue. It was a big step up from her current job, with more responsibility and significantly better pay. That's amazing, I said, kissing her. When do you start? January. But here's the thing. They want me to relocate to their Austin office for the first 6 months. Training, getting up to speed with their processes, working with the team there. My stomach dropped. 6 months? I know it's not ideal. But Marcus, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for. The salary, the title, the chance to really make an impact. It's everything I've been working toward. I stared out at the view, trying to process what she was telling me. We'd just moved in together, just started building this life, and now she was going to be gone for half a year? When would you leave? February. I know the timing is terrible. We just got settled, and now I'd be disrupting everything. Sarah, this is your career, your dream job. Of course you have to take it. But what does that mean for us? I can't ask. You to put your life on hold for 6 months while I'm in Texas. Why not? Because that's not fair to you. You have your job here, your friends, your dad. I can't ask you to wait around for me. I looked at her. This woman who'd pushed me to think seriously about our future. Who'd challenged me to stop playing games and commit to something real. She was offering me an out, a chance to reconsider while she was gone. A year ago, I might have taken it. Sarah, I said, reaching into my jacket pocket. There's something I need to ask you. Her eyes widened as I pulled out the ring box. Marcus, what are you doing? Something I should have done months ago. I got down on one knee, right there on the rocky summit with half of Washington state spread out below us. Sarah, I know this isn't the most romantic setting, and I know I'm probably doing this at the worst possible time with your job situation, but I can't wait any longer. You were right that day at the mall when you said you didn't have time for games. Neither of us do. Life is short, and good people are hard to find, and I don't want to spend another day pretending that what we have isn't the real thing. Sarah was staring at me with tears in her eyes, one hand covering her mouth. I love you. I love your ambition, your honesty, your terrible jokes about my cooking. I love that you challenge me to be better, and that you never let me get away with taking the easy way out. I love that you knew what you wanted and weren't afraid to ask for it, even when it scared me. I opened the ring box. Sarah Elizabeth Chen, will you marry me? For a moment she just stared at the ring. Then she started laughing and crying at the same time. You picked a sapphire, she said. You said you liked sapphires better than diamonds. I can't believe you remembered that. I remember everything you tell me. So what do you say? Yes, she said, laughing. Yes, of course, yes. I slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Sarah admired it for a moment, then pulled me up and kissed me while a group of nearby hikers applauded. This is crazy, she said. I just told you I'm moving to Austin for 6 months, and you proposed. Actually, that's why I proposed. Well, not the only reason, but hearing about Austin made me realize something. What? That I want to be with you no matter where you are. If you're in Austin, then I want to be in Austin too. Sarah looked shocked. Marcus, you can't move to Austin. Your whole life is here. My whole life is you. Everything else is just stuff. But your job. I'm a software architect. I can work remotely or find something in Austin. The tech scene there is huge. But your dad, your brother, will be here when we get back. Sarah, this is exactly what we've been talking about. Building a life together. That doesn't mean just the easy parts when everything is convenient. It means being a team when things get complicated. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the view. You'd really move to Austin with me? I'd move to Antarctica with you if that's where your job took you. Though I'd probably complain about the weather more. She laughed. This is not how I imagined getting engaged. How did you imagine it? I don't know. Dinner at a nice restaurant maybe, or at home. Somewhere warm and romantic, not on top of a mountain where I just told you I'm leaving town. Are you disappointed? Sarah looked at her ring again, then at me. No. This is perfect, actually. Very us. How so? We don't do anything the conventional way. We moved in together before we talked about marriage. We're getting engaged right before I leave for 6 months, and you proposed on a hiking trail where we're both sweaty and probably smell terrible. You don't smell terrible. I definitely smell terrible. But Marcus, that's what I love about us. We don't wait for the perfect moment or the ideal circumstances. We just figure it out as we go. We sat back down on the rocks, Sarah admiring her ring while I tried to process that I was now engaged. Engaged. The word still felt foreign, but in a good way. So what happens now? I asked. Now we call our families and tell them we're engaged and that we're both moving to Austin in February. Jake is going to think I've lost my mind. Your dad will understand. He moved across the country for your mom when they were young. He did? He told me at the dinner party. They met in college in Michigan, but her family was in California. He followed her out there after graduation, got a job he didn't really want just so they could be together. I had no idea. He said it was the best decision he ever made. Not the job, but following love wherever it leads. We packed up our lunch and started the hike back down, but everything felt different now. The trail looked the same, the other hikers were the same people we'd passed on the way up, but I was walking down this mountain as an engaged man, as someone who'd committed to building a life with another person, wherever that life might take us. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said as we navigated a particularly steep section. "Anything. What changed your mind? I mean, really, fundamentally changed it. Because 6 months ago you were terrified of commitment, and now you're offering to move across the country for me." I thought about it as we continued down the trail. Remember when we took those 3 days apart after our fight at the mall? Of course. I kept having these moments where I wanted to share something with you. A song on the radio, something funny that happened at work, a weird dream I had. And I realized that you'd become the person I wanted to tell everything to. That's when I knew I was in love with you, really in love. Not just enjoying your company or having fun together, but actually needing you in my life. And the commitment part? That took longer. But I think it was our conversation about growing old together that really sealed it. Because I realized that I didn't just want you in my life now. I wanted you in my life when we're 80 and arguing about what to watch on TV and who forgot to buy milk. Sarah stopped walking and turned to face me. "You really mean that?" "I really mean that. Sarah, I want all of it with you. The good parts, the challenging parts, the boring parts, the parts where we're in different cities for work, the parts where we're together every day for months. I want to build something with you that lasts." She kissed me right there on the trail, and I could taste the salt from her tears. "I love you too," she said. "And I can't wait to start our life together. Even if it starts in Texas." "Even if it starts in Texas," I agreed. As we reached the bottom of the trail and walked back to our car, I thought about that joke I'd made at the mall 9 months ago. How a throwaway comment about engagement rings had led to the most uncomfortable conversation of my life, which had led to the most honest relationship I'd ever had, which had led to this moment. Maybe Sarah was right that day. Maybe we really didn't have time for games, but we had time for this. For love, for commitment, for building something real together. And that was enough. That was everything. "So," Sarah said as we drove home, admiring her ring in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the car window, "when should we have the wedding? After we get back from Austin? That gives us about 8 months to plan. Think that's enough time?" "Sarah," I said, reaching over to take her hand, "we've got all the time in the world." 8 months later, I was standing in front of a mirror in a hotel room in Austin, adjusting my tie for what felt like the 100th time. My hands were shaking slightly, which was ridiculous. Sarah and I had been engaged for 8 months, lived together for over a year, and survived 6 months of long distance while she established herself in her new position. By all rights, our wedding day should have felt like a formality. But it didn't feel like a formality. It felt monumental. "You look like you're about to throw up," Jake said from behind me. He'd flown in the night before to be my best man, along with my dad and about 30 other friends and family members. "I'm not going to throw up. Because if you are, maybe aim away from the tuxedo." "I'm not nervous about marrying Sarah," I said, turning away from the mirror. "I'm nervous about everything else. The ceremony, all these people watching, giving a speech that doesn't suck. Since when do you care what people think?" That was a fair question. The old me, the guy who'd panicked at the mention of engagement, rings, probably wouldn't have cared about wedding logistics. But somewhere in the process of planning this day, it had become important to me that everything went well. Not because I needed a perfect wedding, but because I wanted Sarah to have one. "I want this to be special for her," I said. "She's been amazing through all of this. The move to Austin, dealing with my cold feet, planning most of the wedding while working 60-hour weeks at her new job. The least I can do is not mess up my vows. Did you write them down?" I patted my jacket pocket. 3 different versions. I couldn't decide which one to use. "Let me see them." I pulled out 3 folded pieces of paper and handed them to Jake. He read through them quickly, his expression growing more amused with each version. "These are all the same speech," he said finally. "What do you mean?" "You're saying the same thing 3 different ways. That you love her, that she changed your life, that you want to grow old with her. The details are different, but the message is identical. So which one should I use?" "None of them." "What?" Jake handed the papers back to me. Marcus, you've been talking about Sarah nonstop for over a year. You don't need a script to tell her how you feel. Just tell her. Before I could respond, there was a knock on the door. My dad stepped in, looking distinguished in his navy suit. How are we doing here? He asked. Marcus is having pre-wedding jitters, Jake said. I am not having jitters. I'm just making sure everything goes smoothly. My dad smiled. Son, let me tell you something about weddings. Nothing goes smoothly. Something always goes wrong. The flowers are late, someone forgets their speech, the cake gets dropped, but none of that matters. If you're marrying the right person. How do you know Sarah is the right person? I asked. Because you moved to Austin for her. Because you light up when you talk about her. Because for the first time since your mother died, when I look at you, I see a man who's truly happy. That hit me harder than I expected. Really? Really. Your mother would have loved Sarah, Marcus. She would have loved that Sarah challenges you, supports you, makes you want to be better. That's what a good marriage is. Two people making each other stronger. A text from Sarah's maid of honor arrived. Bride is ready when you are, and she looks absolutely stunning. That's my cue, I said, pocketing my phone and the 3 speeches. The venue was a small winery outside Austin that Sarah had fallen in love with during her first month in the city. We'd wanted something intimate, just close family and friends, good food, and a view of the Texas hill country. As we'd planned, I'd been amazed by how different this felt from my first wedding, which had been a massive affair with people I barely knew eating rubber chicken in a hotel ballroom. I walked out to the ceremony space, where about 50 people were seated, in rows of white chairs facing an arch covered in wildflowers. The late afternoon sun was casting everything in golden light, and I could hear a string quartet playing softly. It was exactly what Sarah had envisioned. Emma and Tyler, Sarah's kids, were sitting in the front row next to my dad and Jake's family. Emma caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up. Over the past year, both kids have warmed up to me considerably. Tyler, who was studying engineering at UT, had even asked for my advice on his senior project. Emma had started calling me almost stepdad, which was both sweet and terrifying. The music changed, and I turned to see Sarah's sister walking down the aisle, followed by Emma as the maid of honor. They both looked beautiful, but I barely noticed them. I was waiting for Sarah. When she appeared at the end of the aisle, my breath caught in my throat. She was wearing a simple ivory dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and perfectly her. Her dark hair was pulled back softly, and she was carrying a bouquet of the same wildflowers that decorated the arch. But what struck me most was her expression. Pure joy. No nervousness, no doubt. Just happiness. Her father, who'd flown in from San Francisco, was walking her down the aisle, and when they reached me, he shook my hand. Take care of her, he said quietly. I will. I promised. Sarah handed her bouquet to Emma and turned to face me. Up close, I could see that she'd been crying. Happy tears from the look of her smile. Hi, she whispered. Hi yourself. You look incredible. So do you. The officiant, a friend of Sarah's from college who'd gotten ordained online specifically for our wedding, began the ceremony. I tried to pay attention to her words about love and commitment and partnership, but I kept getting distracted by Sarah. The way she was looking at me, like I was the only person in the world. The way she squeezed my hands when the officiant talked about choosing to love someone every day, not just once. Now Marcus and Sarah have written their own vows, the officiant said. Marcus, would you like to go first? This was the moment I'd been dreading. I reached into my jacket pocket, felt the folded papers, and then remembered what Jake had said. Just tell her. I pulled my hands away from my pocket and took Sarah's hands instead. Sarah, I began, my voice stronger than I'd expected. A year and a half ago, you asked me if I was serious about you, or if I was just playing games. I gave you a terrible answer, because I honestly didn't know. I'd been so focused on protecting myself from getting hurt that I'd forgotten what it felt like to actually want something, to be willing to risk something. Sarah was smiling, tears starting to form in her eyes. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone who doesn't challenge you. It's about finding someone worth rising to meet. You've made me braver, more honest, more willing to take chances. You've made me want to be the kind of man who deserves you. I paused, looking out at our friends and family, then back at Sarah. I promise to never take you for granted, to never stop trying to earn your love, and to never let fear make my decisions for me again. I promise to support your dreams, even when they take us to places I've never been. I promise to love you not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. I promise to listen to you, really listen, not just wait for my turn to talk. I promise to keep choosing you every day for the rest of our lives. And I promise to never, ever joke about engagement rings in jewelry stores again. That got a laugh from the crowd, and Sarah was laughing too, even as tears ran down her cheeks. I love you, Sarah. I'm so grateful you didn't let me waste any more time pretending I didn't want this. Sarah, the officiant said, your vows. Sarah took a shaky breath and smiled at me. Marcus, when I met you at Tom's barbecue, I thought you were charming and funny and maybe a little emotionally unavailable. I told myself I was just going to enjoy your company and not expect anything serious. But you surprised me, not by being perfect. You're not perfect, and neither am I, but by being real. By being willing to have hard conversations, to admit when you were scared, to change when you realized you needed to. You joke that I didn't let you waste time, but the truth is, you saved me from wasting time too. You taught me that it's okay to ask for what I want, to have standards, to refuse to settle for less than I deserve. Sarah's voice grew stronger as she continued. I promise to always be honest with you about what I need and want. I promise to support your dreams and ambitions and to build new dreams with you. I promise to be patient when you're figuring things out and to push you when you're being stubborn. I promise to love you when you're confident and when you're insecure, when you're silly and when you're serious, when we're together and when we're apart. I promise to keep choosing you too, every single day. And Marcus, I promise to never stop challenging you, because that's when you're at your best. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. We exchanged rings. I'd gotten a simple platinum band that felt right on my finger. We kissed when the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. As we walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, I caught glimpses of the people who'd come to celebrate with us. Jake, grinning, and taking pictures. My dad wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. Emma and Tyler cheering loudly. David, who'd brought yet another girlfriend. This one age-appropriate and seemingly normal. But mostly I was focused on Sarah, my wife, which was going to take some getting used to, and the way she was beaming at everyone we passed. The reception was held on the winery's covered patio, strung with lights and decorated with more wildflowers. We'd kept everything simple: good wine, great food, and a playlist of songs that meant something to us. No elaborate first dance or complicated traditions, just our people celebrating our beginning. During dinner, Jake stood up to give his best man speech. I've known Marcus for his entire life, he began, and I can honestly say I've never seen him as happy as he's been since he met Sarah. For years, he was convinced that marriage wasn't for him, that he was better off alone. He used to say that relationships were too complicated, too risky, too much work. Then he met Sarah, and suddenly all that work didn't seem like work anymore. Suddenly the risk seemed worth taking. Sarah, thank you for showing my brother that the right person doesn't make your life more complicated. They make it more complete. Emma's maid of honor speech was shorter, but no less heartfelt. Sarah, you've been the best mom I could ask for, and now you've found someone who makes you even happier than you already were. Marcus, welcome to the family. Just so you know, we've already talked, and if you hurt her, you'll have to answer to me and Tyler. And we know where you live, Tyler added from his seat, getting a big laugh. As the evening wound down and our guests started to head back to their hotels, Sarah and I found ourselves alone on the patio, slow dancing to music from her phone while the staff cleaned up around us. So, she said, her head on my shoulder. How does it feel to be married? Like the most natural thing in the world, I said. How about you? Like we should have done this months ago. Any regrets? Just one. What's that? I wish we could have seen the look on your face that day at the mall when I asked if you were serious about us. You must have looked terrified. I was terrified. But you know what? I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you didn't let me keep pretending we were just casually dating when we both knew it was more than that. Even though it scared you? Especially because it scared me. Sometimes the best things are the scariest things. We swayed together, in the warm Texas evening, surrounded by the remnants of our wedding celebration. And I thought about how much had changed since that conversation in the food court. How a relationship that had started with jokes and casual dinners had become this. A partnership, a commitment, a choice to build a life together no matter what came next. Sarah? Thank you. For what? For not settling for less than what you wanted. For pushing me to figure out what I wanted too. For giving me a chance to be the kind of man who deserves you. She lifted her head and looked at me. Marcus, you always deserved me. You just needed to believe it. I believe it now. Good. Because we've got about 50 more years to figure out this marriage thing. 50 years, huh? At least, I'm planning to live to be very old and very demanding. I wouldn't have it any other way. As we drove back to our hotel that night, Sarah's wedding dress carefully hung in the back seat, and her ring catching the light from passing street lamps. I thought about the question she'd asked me all those months ago. Are you serious about us, or are you just playing games? The answer, I realized, was that I'd never been more serious about anything in my life. And the best part was, neither had she. Sometimes the best relationships aren't the ones that start with love at first sight or dramatic romantic gestures. Sometimes they're the ones that start with an honest question and the courage to answer it truthfully, even when the truth is complicated. Sometimes the best love stories begin with someone being brave enough to say, I don't have time for games anymore. Are you in? Or are you out? And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you're brave enough to say, I'm in. All the way in. We were both all the way in now, and it felt like the beginning of everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.